Ugh. All right, so this is kind of a high level of my whiteboard at this point. A few things I'm still working on. You'll see that the VMware Microsoft portion of the roadmap's not really put together yet. Kind of still working on that. If you got any suggestions for me, please let me know. But I just want to kind of throw this at you already, kind of see what you all think. I know it's kind of hard to see the board from the computer, but if you just care to just listen to what I'm kind of putting together, I'm sure you've seen the whiteboard before physically. So just give me some pointers on where you think I can tie back and how I can better explain some of this stuff. So let me go ahead and begin. Good morning. First off, let me say how much I really do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come in here and speak with you this morning. I recognize a few of you within the room, but for the ones of you who don't know who I am, my name is David Bartley, and I am the Intel Sales Solution Specialist here for HP's Conway site. I want to speak with you about a few different things this morning. The first thing I want to speak about is a review of some of the drivers, goals, and challenges you're facing within your data center. I want to tailor those drivers, goals, and challenges into a roadmap with HP. And then last, I want to put a solution in front of you that I think from a scalability and performance perspective is something you're going to be very impressed with. So let's go ahead and begin. So we were speaking on the phone last week, and I was listening to some of the things you were trying to do within your data center. And the first thing we want to be able to do is, of course, increase performance. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's like, yes, we want to increase performance, David. Everybody wants to increase performance within their data center. Isn't that kind of why you're sitting here in front of us today? And you're absolutely right. However, there are other drivers that might actually inhibit your ability to increase performance. So I don't put it up there as a shock to you, but as a focal point of the conversation as we move forward. We also want to be able to increase our time to market. From the time you cut a PO to the time that infrastructure is inside of your data center and turned on, stood up, and running, that is lost revenue that you need to help capture. We also want to get you set up for new business opportunities. There are all sorts of probably wonderful things you want to be able to do with your data center. However, when you're standardized on legacy infrastructure, it's really holding you back financially as well as from an innovation area. And so we really want to get you set up for the new age of IT. And then last but not least, we want to be able to do more with less. And isn't that the kicker? It would be nice to have an infinite amount of money to throw at performance, to be able to say, oh, let's throw money at a bigger network. Let's throw some more money in getting some more virtual machines. Let's get some more money over here for more storage. But we know that's not how reality works, right? We're constantly being asked to do more with less. We're constantly dealing with constrained budgets. And so every year that becomes a more and more serious problem. So what do these drivers look like in relation to our goals? Well, the first thing we want to be able to do is to optimize our labor costs. You're most likely spending between 65 and 70% of your entire data center cost in labor alone. And we want to help you optimize that so that you can not only save in labor costs, but take some of that extra money you would have saved and work it back into your data center to ultimately work for you even more. We also want to be able to deploy apps faster. Again, from the time you cut that PO to that time the infrastructure is in your data center, that's lost revenue. And HP recognizes this and recognizes this is a very serious problem. And we have the right solutions that can get on site much quicker than our competitors. We also want to help you service your line of business demands to help further service your SLAs. You have a performance standard with your customer that you have to meet, and you've made a promise that you're going to do it. And we have the management platform, the infrastructure, and the time to market to get it there so that you can help ultimately service your customer better from an IT perspective, ultimately helping us help you. And when we're talking about doing more with less, the two key performance indicators are TCO, or total cost of ownership, as well as ROI, or return on investment. Now, we know to deal with these goals, there are going to be all sorts of challenges on the way. And we've already forecasted what your data center is going to look like in 5 years. So let's have a quick conversation about that. So after kind of getting a general forecast, we know that you're going to have at least twice as many virtual machines. This is going to cause all sorts of sprawling complexity within your data center, which, if you're trying to optimize labor, is not really something that's going to work out. You can go ahead and forget deploying apps faster if you're constantly dealing with putting out fires within your virtual machines and the complexity dealt with that. You also are going to have 3 times as many devices, as well as twice as many users. This is going to cause bottlenecks galore within your infrastructure, not only in storage, but in your networking. And in a day and age where everything needs to be now and instant, that's not a luxury you can afford. And also, big data is not going anywhere, folks. you need to have the infrastructure in place to be able to capture those data points as they come in so that you can ultimately make it into something that's actually generating revenue for you. So we've gone through our drivers, goals, and challenges. Now let's talk about an HP roadmap tailored to those. So let's go ahead and talk about HP servers. When it comes to industry standard servers, there is no name in the game, folks, like Hewlett-Packard. We've been the market segment leader inside of the industry for 18 years running now. And there really is a reason for it. It's because every single time we put out a new generation of servers, it's groundbreaking technology that our competitors aren't even thinking about yet. So in Generation 8, we extended the sea of servers technology to our PCI cards, as well as our Flex Fabric and Flex LOM adapters. What this means is that you now have a complete 3D understanding of what's going on in your chassis from a power and cooling. And this is going to help you only run the fans you have to, as opposed to running all the fans all the time, saving you in your power and cooling and lowering your green footprint. We also gave you twice as much flashback write to cache, which is going to give you indefinite data retention within your server. We also gave you the ability of iLoad management standardized on every single ProLiant server. This means that you can be in LAX airport right now, 2,000 miles away from your data center, and be able to turn on your server and manage it accordingly from a tablet. And then my personal favorite is the flexible LOM option. No longer are you stuck with the pre-configured NIC that's embedded on the motherboard. If you need to have a 10 gig 2 port on a DL380, you can do that. You no longer have to purchase an additional NIC and use a PCI slot you might have needed to use for something else. HP saw that and recognized that, and that's why we changed it in our Gen 8s. Now, Gen 9 is not slowing down, folks. We can give you 3 times the amount of compute power that you used to be able to do with the Generation 8. Talk about lowering your total power and cooling, as well as giving you a much lower total cost of ownership. We also are introducing our new 4th generation of double data RAM, or DDR4, which is going to give you more than 2,133 megatransfers a second at the same 1.2 volts you used to be able to do with our previous Generation 3. This means you get much more power with using less power, if that makes sense, right? And I think the best innovation in our Generation 9 is we heard our customers cry for a lower price, and we tailored to the customer. We now have a much lower list price for our Generation 9s than what we recently implemented in Generation 8. And when we're talking about a competitor like Dell, don't get me wrong, Dell makes a great server, but the statistics don't lie, folks. When you look at the actual testing, they do run hotter. You're going to spend a lot more in power and cooling with the Dell product. The life cycle on their server is really not there. The support service is not near the par of HP's. And their biggest position was that they're cheaper. Dell's a lot cheaper. You can get a cheaper server with Dell. But now the list price of our Gen 9 servers is lower than what you can get from a Dell equivalent. So now we beat them on the support, we beat them on performance, and we're beating them on price now. So Dell really has nothing on us anymore when it comes to a server competition. Now, I want to talk about, after we've spoken about servers, I want to talk about a relationship that I'm sure you're already aware of, but I want to go into a little further detail because I think there's some points about them you might not be aware of, and I'm speaking about Intel. Now, with Intel, you're probably very much aware of who they are. They're a household name. You likely have an Intel CPU in your personal computer at home. However, you might not be aware that Intel is also 97% of the enterprise market. And the reason they're 97% is it's simple, folks. They are simply the best. You don't get to 97% market share by just like a marketing gimmick or just great advertising. It's because they work, and they work very well. And we recently came off of our Ivy Bridge. Now we're standardized on the Haswell line, which is our new line of E5 Xeon processors. And again, Intel is very similar to HP. They didn't necessarily have to come out with the Haswell line because they just came out with Ivy just almost a year ago. But they did it because they're constantly striving to further tailor themselves to the customer. And tailor they did. You have up to 26 different core options now. You really can find the perfect CPU for your right workload. Instead of having to choose between 2 CPUs, like, oh, I could go with this one's a little more expensive than I need, and this one that's just cheaper, but it's not quite the performance I need. No, you have 26 different options now that can really fit to the right workload you need. We also have a variety of different improvements in the CPUs themselves. You can get up to 45 megabytes of L3 cache now. You can get up to 3.5 gigahertz for those real speedy CPUs as you need them. You can also get up to 18 cores within your CPUs now for those real strong, work-intensive CPUs. And what you might not realize is, of course, Intel is a CPU dominant, but they also are the market leader in SSDs as well. And it's because of the same reason other CPUs, they just perform better than the competition. When you look at the SSD's life cycle is very sensitive because from the time you turn on an SSD, it's got a limited amount of workload it can do before it shuts down. And because they've implemented an amazing storage controller on their SSDs, the life cycle is much better than anything you're going to get from the competition because of their wear leveling technology. They also have a portfolio that's standardized across the board. If you need a read-intensive SSD, they've got you covered. If you need a write-intensive SSD, they got you covered. And if you kind of need an SSD that does a little bit of both, they've got you covered there. And they're going to be the best multi-layer SSD you're going to get for read and sequential IOPS. Now, when we're talking about Intel HP from an SSD, NIC, and CPU, we're talking about a performance relationship that really can't be beat by anybody else in the market. Now, you're going to need to take this server and probably connect it to some kind of storage, and HP has a wide variety of storage as well we can provide. So let's have a conversation about that. So again, we can actually service you from just a few terabytes all the way to a multiple petabytes if we needed to. But for your particular data center, I think the conversation that would make the most sense is let's talk about HP's 3-part abilities. So if you're really talking about wanting to do more with less, you really want to do more performance and more capacity with less drives, you want to be able to do more flexibility with less work and more features with less management, HP 3-part is the right route to go. We can do Y-level striping across our arrays now with 3-part. This means that instead of having this logical RAID set, this logical RAID set, and this logical RAID set, you can actually have the same RAID set all across the array that's going to save you crucial time in putting this together and crucial man hours and labor that you would have spent putting those logical RAID sets together. We also are the only array that's ASIC based for our thin provisioning as well as our zero detection. Now, ASIC based is a silicon chip designed for a specific task. HP's 3-part recognizes that zero detection and thin allocation are not just like neat things you put on an array anymore. No, they're crucial to making sure that your array or that your storage array is lean and mean. And so what that's going to be able to do for you is it's actually going to be able to help you take legacy storage infrastructure and help make it much leaner in the respect that maybe something that took 3 gigabytes to store in the past is only going to take 1.8 gigabytes now. And with our zero detection, it's going to give you back crucial data that you would have lost within the life cycle of the product. We're talking about terabytes of data that were once lost to the wind, you can actually capture back and make it rework for you. And so we're talking about the definition of storage capacity utilization. And also, the thin allocation for our storage array is only 16 kilobytes, which means that whenever you have those really small writes, you have to set at least a minimum amount of storage for that particular write. And so for your small writes, we only use 16 kilobytes, whereas some of our competitors are using multi-megabytes and some that are actually using gigabytes for even the smallest writes. And EMC, for example, makes a great product. However, they're known to actually size out much smaller solutions than what you actually need, which makes you come back for a refresh much sooner than you ever expected, which can be a lot of stress on the customer. And not going to lie, they cost substantially more than what our HP 3-part can. And they can't compete with the automation of what we can provide in a 3-part. So if you want the right solution at the right price and at the right time, our HP 3-part is the perfect solution for you. So now let's talk about how you're going to connect the servers and the storage all together into some kind of networking. Now, HP also provides networking. And we're the only vendor that can really provide software-defined networking end-to-end for data center, campus, and branch. We are constantly striving to take our networking and make it more open standard so that you can implement it into existing infrastructure with no hoops to worry about. And the best part about our networking, it's kind of our bread and butter in it, is our support with our networking. The majority of our networking has lifetime warranties, and we're not talking about lifetime warranties that are limited like some of our competitors where, oh, you're using that core switch 24/7, sorry, you're exempted from the lifetime warranty. No, you don't get that with HP. You know exactly what you're getting when you get a lifetime warranty. It doesn't matter how often you're using it, how intense that core is being ran, we're going to service it no matter what at the right support. And so with a competitor like Cisco, for example, Cisco in 2008 made, bar none, the best switch in the market. There's no questions asked from a performance standard. They really did. And they know that. And the biggest problem about that is that it's actually working against them now because they're really holding on to that legacy infrastructure. They're not really adopting the open standards that HP is, and they're not really looking into the proper R&D of what the new age of networking IT is going to look like. And the biggest thing for them is the licensing for them, folks, is so complex it'll make your head spin. If you've ever dealt with a SmartNet fee, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it really makes the list price or the overall price that you're cutting to them initially much greater than you originally expected because there's the list price, and then you have to pay for these license fees as you go along. HP doesn't have that. It's simplicity at its best. When you cut us a PO in our networking, you know exactly what you're getting. You know that that's the last dime you're going to spend with it because we're going to service it with a lifetime warranty. Of course, connecting all this together, you're going to need some little operating system. And this is where I talk about VMware and Microsoft. I don't quite have something together for this yet. I still working on that. Of course, you know, like I know that 40% of all HP servers or 40% of all VMware virtualized machines are going to be on an HP server. We're the largest in that respect. We have the longest standing relationship with Microsoft. I'll probably say something about that. I need to go into further detail about that. So, you know, for now, we're just kind of leave it at that, and we'll kind of work around it against it. So let's get back into the actual conversation. Now, let's talk about a solution for you from HP. You might realize that, of course, we're number one in servers, like I said earlier, but what you don't realize maybe is that we're also number 2 in storage and number 2 in networking. That is an extraordinary thing to be able to say as a company. I'm extremely proud to say I sell a portfolio that really sells itself. There is no amount of marketing that can say that for us, and we have done that from the performance of our infrastructure alone. And as a solution for you, what we've done is we've actually taken our servers, storage, and networking, we've put them together in a single solution for you that we call a turnkey, ready-to-go solution that we can get on site in literally 20 days, folks. Talk about a time to market. And if I had the opportunity right now to get with my RFQ team, I could get you a quote bag sized out in 20 minutes. So let's have a conversation about our converged systems. Now, I have a few options I want to put in front of you today. The first option is our CS300, and then our other option is our CS700. Now, with our 300, you can deploy up to 300 virtual machines, and then with our 700, you can do between 300 and 700 virtual machines. With our 300, when you compare it to, say, the VCE vBlock 100, we have them beat not only in performance, but in price as well. So what we can do with this is that we can actually give you 25%, we can give you twice the performance with 25% less cost. And with our 700 series, we can give you 3 times the labor reduction, as well as a TCO reduction of 28%. And again, the best part about this and really servicing, getting your apps deployed faster and helping you align your SLAs is we can get this in half. Let me repeat, half the time that we could with the VCE vBlock. And that's why our CS stands out above the rest when it comes to our competition. Now, of course, if you're going to put this all together, you need a way of managing all this infrastructure, right? And I would be extremely proud if this was my portfolio by itself. Being able to say you're number 1 in servers, number 2 in storage, and number 2 in networking is a great thing to say as a rep for HP. However, our CEO, Meg Whitman, thinks that this is going to be the big playmaker for us in 2015. That's how confident she is in it. And I'm talking about her HP OneView. And the reason she's really excited about this is because we spent 5 years putting this together with 30 different customers advisors. We're talking about some of the biggest names in the industry. And this is really the first management platform that's really designed around how humans think and how people deal, right? It seems that most all of the management platforms are designed around how the device thinks and how the device makes decisions. We got rid of that. We decided, you know what? Let's start making our management platforms designed around how we think. And that's what makes HP OneView so great. You actually are able to see your entire data center from a single pane of glass and being able to use a very user-friendly interface that can help you deploy apps much quicker. That's going to help you deploy VMs and automate using this enclosure to mimic this enclosure in a quarter of the time it would take you previously. And one of the great things is that from the single pane of glass, you can click into an enclosure, turn it off, and then you can see how from, again, the single pane, how it affects the entire rest of the data center. With Cisco's, you have to literally go into each and every single enclosure and see how it was changed. And that can just cause you way too much time. It causes way too much complexity in trying to deal with it. And again, we're talking about simplicity here, folks. And when we're talking about using HP, we can actually monitor Cisco networking, whereas Cisco can only monitor their networking as well as their servers. If you want to do an entire converged solution, you're going to have to purchase some other management platform from like EMC or maybe something from our HP portfolio, because they can't monitor the entire solution from server storage and networking like HP can. And again, when you're ready to make the leap, when you're ready to make the step into an HP cloud solution, HP's Helion has you covered. Now, what is a cloud solution? Well, all a cloud really is, or from an infrastructure, is that it's a bunch of virtual machines that are getting you ramp up at different times for the certain workload that's needed at the moment. That's exactly what your HP CS300 and 700 is ready for. It's the perfect solution to get you set up for the cloud when you need it. And when you're ready to make that leap, HP's Helion has been rated the #1 private cloud solution across the board. It's been rated by Forrester, and it's the most purchased private cloud solution on the market today. And for your unsecure, not really in the infrastructure you need that's not necessarily needed to be as secure, we can do a public cloud solution. And for a little bit of both, we also have hybrid options. So, folks, when you look at this from across the board, we have you covered end to end. From a management perspective, from a hardware perspective, we can get you we can get you ready on the cloud, and we can get it there in a time to market that's half the deployment time as our competitors. We can help further service your SLAs. We can assure you the best return on your investment, and we can make sure that you're really set up for the new age of IT and helping you optimize your labor costs at best. Now, after this conversation, I think it probably makes sense for us to sit down and to kind of run over exactly what would be the most sizable solution for you in a CS300 or 700. From there, I'd love to actually get with our solutions architect to make sure we have the proper specs, and then we can get with my quoting team to get something priced out. How does Tuesday at 3:30 sound? Okay, so you can see that on the back end, there's still a few things I'm working on. I'll put up probably a revision of this later this week, but to kind of help me as I'm putting this stuff together, I thought it makes sense to go ahead and just throw this at you guys and tell me what you think. So, yeah, let me know, guys. Thanks a lot.